Well, before we take a look at other newspaper publications from across the nation and also get better insight into what other stories are saying in the country, let's see if we can join Mr. Nick Agule, who is a public affairs analyst and a public affairs commentator as well from London. Hello and a very good morning to you, Nick. It's wonderful to have you join us on Morning Express this morning.
Good morning to you and good morning to all our viewers globally.
Well, fantastic. Yesterday was Armed Forces Remembrance Day in the country. And even though the president was away in the UAE, it appears that the vice president, as well as other top government officials and even governors across the country, were, well enough to have handled the Armed Forces Remembrance Day in a very fantastic manner. Do you share the same thoughts?
I thank you very much for that. Mr. President has his reasons for why he was away from the country. We could have wished that he was around to give his own respect to our men in uniform, both those who have served and retired, those who are serving now, and those who have paid the supreme price on our behalf. However, the government is not about a single individual. So the other leaders from the vice president service chiefs were available to pay respect to our fallen heroes. And for the servicemen, what is needed for them, what they need is perhaps not even the presence of leaders at Armed Forces Remembrance, but they need concrete action in terms of those who have retired. Their retirement benefits are being paid as and when due, marked up with inflation. Those who have fallen in the defense of our democracy and our country, that their families are getting the benefits that are due to them, marked up by inflation. And those who are serving, their welfare is well taken care of, and they are also being properly equipped to fight the insecurity that they face, whether it is terrorists, bandits, insurgents, kidnappers, or even armed robbery, anything, that they are properly equipped. When you don't equip them well, and the enemy has superior firepower, that is why they are able to overrun a military base, and then they just take the lives of our security as if it's not valuable. So these are the kind of things that we need. We need to see concrete action from our leaders in terms of the welfare of servicemen, retired, serving, and falling. That's what we need to be seeing with the
Well,
budget that is allocated to them.
it's certainly about welfare, Mr. Nick, and I believe it's one of the things that many high-profile individuals across the country have stated yesterday in the comments of former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. He said, "May their sacrifices never be in vain." Peter Obi of the Labour Party also added, "Your sacrifices are deeply appreciated." And Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, urged Nigerians to help families of fallen heroes. But beyond all these encomiums showered on our fallen heroes and veterans as well, what viable solutions do you think that the government, the federal government, firstly, and also state governments across the can take in ensuring that the welfare of the families of these fallen heroes, as well as the veterans who now battle ailments, their welfare is or put into consideration and they're not neglected in any way?
What measures that need to be taken is to put the budget to where the budget is committed, right? So every year we write a budget that says we're going to spend X amount of billions on our security architecture, and let that money be committed to that. When Mr. President was presenting the 2025 budget at the National Assembly, the Senate President did make the statement that I think the recurrent expenditure was like 48% implemented, and that's not good. What it then means is that about half of the monies budgeted for the 2024 were not spent, right? So government needs to ensure that if we have a budget, the budget is spent as at when due and is spent for the items that are needed. You find the Nigerian military are all over the place, building university here and there and all of that. That's a job for the Ministry of Education. Nigerian military should be taking care of the welfare of their retired servicemen, those who are falling, and those who are serving, and then buying the right equipment for their men. And the other thing is that instead of fighting insecurity, we need to also prevent insecurity, right?
Yeah.
Prevent it from happening in the first place so that you are not even fighting it. And the way to prevent it is to gather intelligence.
Yes.
And in Nigeria, we have got all sorts of intelligence bodies all over the place. We have DSS, we have DIA, we have NIA, we have all sorts of intelligence. And these intelligence bodies need to be doing their work and stop these insurgents from even entering Nigeria in the first place, right? So secure the border, stop them from entering. It is when they enter and they come into Nigeria that they begin to perpetrate insecurity, and then we'll start fighting it. And by then, maybe they have already kidnapped some of our people and things like that. So these are some of the measures that can be taken to make securing Nigeria better than what it is now.
Now, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which took place yesterday, is coming just a little over a week after the recent attack on a military base in Damboa in Borno State. How does this feel, in your opinion, for the families of these fallen heroes? And do you think that perhaps yesterday's Armed Forces Remembrance Day might have been met with less enthusiasm, unlike the way it used to be for most of these family and relatives of our fallen heroes?
It's not good at all. And this is a situation that demoralizes the troops, right? And even their families, because families are now being stressed. They think about, our people are in the war front, and the insurgents can just come and wipe them out, without any form of defense from us. So it calls to question the kind of strategy that we are putting in place, and the military high command, they have to take this incident very seriously, because look, why would it be possible that a band of insurgents can penetrate the territorial boundaries of Nigeria and come to a military base and attack it, right?
Yeah.
Where is the effort to have taken them out before they even arrived at the military base, right? And how secured is that military base that it can succumb to such an insurgency attack? And when these people were moving in a convoy, where was the intelligence to pick their movement up and then give the appropriate signals for our people to be prepared for them, or even lay ambush for them? So you can see that in terms of military tactics, it's not falling in place at all. And the earlier the military high command begin to take this as issue seriously, the better.
Now, Mr. Nick, I might sort of refresh your memory as to how that attack happened. According to reports, before the insurgents came to the base, in physical, to attack the military operatives there, they had orchestrated an attack about 25 kilometers away from the point of attack. It was more or less a drone attack, and from reports also, it says that a surveillance drone had hovered over the camp for quite a number of times, and the military men thought it might have been their own surveillance drones and not that of the insurgents, because they never could have thought these insurgents had such sophisticated weaponry in their position. And then just a little while after, there is a drone attack, it destabilizes the base, and then the ground troops launch in. This is a very well calculated and systematic attack on one military base and our Nigerian military and the fight against insurgency in general. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think that perhaps we should be paying more attention to intelligence gathering and the way that we identify things that we do not know in the military, of course, especially with drone operations in the Northeast?
Certainly, we should be. From what you have described, first and foremost, the attack that happened 25 kilometers away from that base should have alerted the military of the presence of these insurgents within that territorial area, right? So that would have meant that the base will call for reinforcements. That didn't seem to have happened. And then to say that the drone was hovering over the base and they assumed that it was a friendly drone. Again, for me, that's terrible, right? If a drone was hovering on the base, they needed to have called the units around them to say, are you guys sending a drone? But by the way, who will even send a drone over a military camp without first alerting the commander, right? It doesn't make sense that even another unit of the Nigerian Armed Forces is sending a drone over this base and doesn't alert the commander that, look, we are sending a drone. If you look at the mission statement of all the service chiefs, they talk about doing what they need to do in a joint environment, in a joint operating environment. That means they are not doing it alone, they are doing it along with the other services. So even if it is the Air Force that is sending a drone over an army base, then it's expected that the commanders will speak to themselves and they actually work out these drone operations together. To say that we saw a drone but we assumed it was a friendly drone, for me, that is really terrible, right? And then for the fact that this attack now happened, imagine the insurgents are now traveling 25 kilometers away. 25 kilometers is not a small distance. So they traveled 25 kilometers away and came to attack this base. And the Air Force didn't send helicopter gunships or fighter jets to go and take them out as they were moving on that 25-kilometer long stretch of road. To me, again, it shows a bit of lack of coordination. And the earlier the three service chiefs and their oga, which is the chief of defense staff, begin to coordinate operations and help each other in the war front, the better for all of them.
Now, while we are still talking about drone attacks and the rest, a recent revelation by ex-military generals and commanders has revealed or alleged that NGOs and international organizations in the northeastern part of the country are sort of aiding these terrorists in the northeast and also aiding bandits in the northwest, supplying arms, supplying, giving them food supplies, medication, and all of that. How hefty of an allegation is this? And should we really be raising our what national NGOs are in the...
For me, this looks like an excuse for failure.
Now this is coming from ex-military generals and commanders. This is not from our currently serving military men.
Okay, so if the ex-military commanders or generals have got credible information, that's intel now, they have intelligence that NGOs, local and international, are aiding the bandits and insurgents, then they should pass that information to the appropriate quarters, and the appropriate quarters to take necessary action. Why are they even coming to the press to come and talk about it so that they will alert the insurgents that, oh, your cover has been blown? And these people now know that you have support from the NGOs, right? Does that make sense? If you are a former military general or commander, you know that if you have such information, you pass that information to the military high command so that they can go and surprise these people with attacks and arrest them and investigate them and bring them to book. It's the only way to solve it. Why go to the newspaper and you are talking cha-cha-cha-cha in the newspaper? How is that going to help us fight the insurgency?
Well, that's a very big question. And in addition to that, there is also a recent report in line with this allegations by the ex-commanders and ex-generals, where the Nigerian military has now banned drone operations in Northeast, warning against violation of this ban. Is this really necessary?
So I'm not at the theater of I'm not at the theater where at the war front where this thing is happening. If the commanders on the ground believe, especially in the light of what we have been talking about, that a drone came and hovered over a military base and it was mistaken for a friendly drone, when in actual fact it was an enemy drone. If that be the case, and the commanders believe that, let us now put all drones down, so that any drone that is in the air we know is an enemy drone, then so be it. Using drones for maybe covering social events and all of that, it is a nice to have. It's not a must have, right? People can live without it. So if it is going to keep people safer, then of course you need to look in America when 911 was happening in America, right? By the time the first plane crashed in, second one, third one, by the time the fourth plane crashed, the entire planes in American Air Force were grounded. Every single flight was put on the ground because at that time they didn't know which flight was friendly, which was not friendly. So that kind of situation can happen to keep people safe and keep the troops safe. So there's no problem with that.
Now, if this particular drone that had hovered over the camp just hours before the attack was orchestrated was mistaken for a friendly drone, don't you think that perhaps it might have looked a little bit like a drone that belongs to the Nigerian military?
But that, I mean, in fact, the more we talk about this thing, the more I try to imagine that what came over what came over the commanders at that base. These people go to the NDA, they spend 5 years, right? And then after that, one of the organizations that trains their people very well is the military, right? From one rank to the other, you are going through. There are statutory trainings that you must go to. Junior staff course, senior staff course, war college, all of those. Look, why would a commander see a drone hovering over their camp and they think it's a friendly drone? Who makes such an assumption? You understand?
Yeah.
It's like you see a convoy of gun trucks approaching your base and you assume they are friendly, okay? Until you now come under attack. It doesn't happen that way. And I think this should serve as a lesson to all commanders that, look, there was a big mistake that was made here. You don't assume anything when you are in the war front. You have to confirm and be sure. So if you see a drone come, you have to contact the military formation that can send a drone to you and say, look, are you guys the ones sending drones here? If they say no, then in fact, why would another military command send a drone over another military base without even informing the commanders on the ground? That was the first thing that was so unusual, and I'm surprised that this happened. But sometimes these things happen, mistakes are made. There was this story of even the CIA somewhere in the Middle East. They thought they had an informant, right? And they were working with him. And then he said he was coming for a meeting. And then he came for a meeting with a bag. They didn't search the bag because they didn't want to destroy the confidence they have with him. And he came into the boardroom, sat down with his bag, and exploded a bomb that killed the entire CIA team. So sometimes such mistakes are made, but then of course lessons are learned from it, and we hope this kind of thing does not repeat itself again.
Well, certainly, let's be hopeful and keep fingers crossed. But also concerning the recent, statement by the military on banning drones in the Northeast. Now, let's take a look at the broader picture. Drones used in military operations are far more different than drones used by civilians for maybe video productions or for other purposes. Now, if the ban on drones is an unencapsulating ban, what do you think might happen to businesses or media organizations or individuals who use drones that are not military-based drones for their own personal use? Is this going to constitute some sort of setback for them?
Okay, so I agree with you that drones used for military operations may look different from those used for commercial purposes. But when people want to deceive you, right, they can build drones that look like for commercial purposes, but actually they are military drones, right? So if the commanders on the ground believe that the best thing now is to ground all drones so that we know which is which. And why not? Like I said, America grounded about 6,000 aircraft that were in their airspace, right? So that they wanted to get a hold of what was happening as regards 911. So that's the kind of thing that military commanders can do. And look, we can live without drones. We can live without them. So if it means bring drones down, let us, get over whatever it is before we bring them back up again. I think we should live with that so that we can keep everyone safe.
Now, in the general fight against insurgency, we have had these allegations on NGOs countless times, and it appears that each time it is mentioned, it is mostly, swept under the carpet, even by military officials themselves. And it is only the recent revelation by ex-military commanders and generals about NGOs being complicit in the fight or in the insurgency in the Northeast that has brought it back to the limelight this time around. Now, do you think that maybe it is time to start ushering these NGOs out of the nation? And this might also help in stemming down the grip that Boko Haram has had on the Northeast. Do you share this opinion?
I don't share that opinion.
Why so?
Yeah, I don't share that opinion because NGOs are doing a lot for us in Nigeria. Let's not forget about that. So instead of throwing away the baby and the bathwater, right, the security architecture should be able to identify NGOs that are engaging in illegal activities, right, and then deal with them. Why they leave the NGOs that are here doing the good work for Nigerians? You can't just say, oh, because we suspect that some NGOs are collaborating with the bandits or insurgents and all of that. Therefore, we're going to ban all NGOs. That to me, that would be a knee-jerk reaction that is going to be more injurious to us than the attempt at what we're trying to gain. So they like this intel that these former generals had, they should put that intel to the military high command and the security architecture so that you can, as a Nigerian government, we have the power to investigate everybody and anybody within the territorial boundaries of Nigeria. So they should investigate NGOs, and those that are found wanting should be dealt with, while those who are doing the real humanitarian work should be allowed to continue with their work.
Well, with the recent charges made by the Vice President Kashim Shettima yesterday and governors across the country, and even the Chief of Defense Staff, who has pledged once again to prioritize, the fight against insurgency in the Nigerian military across the country. What should Nigerians be expecting? It's been 16 years since we started the war against Boko Haram insurgency in the Northeast. And let's say, give it another 4 years. It will be 2 decades. Should Nigerians be expecting a total end to the Boko Haram insurgency maybe in the next 4 years in the country?
Well, that is the kind of target that government needs to give themselves. Yeah, for instance, Mr. President appoints the service chiefs, and he should give them target to say, look, go and end Boko Haram in X number of years, go and do this, and then provide them the support to do that. And if the commanders are unable to do that, then consequence management is brought in. It's the same way you appoint a managing director of a company, you give him target. You say, look, you have to increase revenue by so, sales by so, and manage costs like this. And then at the end of the year, you are praising him or her based on those targets, and you see whether he's doing well or not. And in Nigeria, unfortunately, you see, Mr. President, at the last media chat, he was given a platform to be able to say that he wants to run Nigeria with the rule of law, and whoever is on the wrong side of our law will be dealt with. And that was the question that was asked to him, whether he was going to investigate the military high command. And unfortunately, he didn't take that platform to make a very strong statement that whether you're a general or you're a service chief or you're whoever, if you do the wrong thing, I'm coming after you as Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Instead, he said, look, I'm not going to investigate the military high command because I don't want to disrespect the institution, which to me was not right. Investigating people is not disrespecting them. No, you are upholding the rule of law.
Exactly, and also, holding them accountable for their
exactly.
actions or inactions.
Exactly. So with that kind of mindset or body language from Mr. President, it's unfortunate. Perhaps maybe we will not even be thinking about ending this insurgency soon.
Well, let's be hopeful and optimistic about it. I believe that with the renewed hope and renewed vigor towards the fight against insurgency, we might be seeing a reasonable stemming down of the activities of the Boko Haram insurgents in the Northeast.
Hopefully. That's what we all hope for and pray for.
Well, let's move on quickly to another topical issue in the news, which is concerning a 200 billion naira debt owed to, telcos by 9 Nigerian banks. Now, this is also consequent of a recent declaration by NCC to these telcos to disconnect the 9 banks. Now, Nigerians might not get alerts from January 27th, which is just around the corner. Is this supposed to be an issue of concern for Nigerians, seeing that almost every Nigerian transacts with either USSD? Sometimes USSD is like the easiest way to recharge airtime on your phone and all of that, and you also depend on these SMS alerts to ensure that your bank transactions, either going in or out, have actually been well processed. Should we be concerned about this?
Yes, we should be concerned, and it's quite concerning as well, even for us as individuals and for the economy as a whole. Because, like you have rightly said, a lot of Nigerians use the USSD, especially if you don't have a smartphone. The only way you can do banking is USSD.
Yes.
Yeah, if you don't have a smartphone, then you don't have an app. You don't have a bank app, so you use USSD to check your balance, to transfer money, and things like that. And if those services are switched off, it's going to impact negatively on Nigerians, and it's going to affect the overall economy. But the blame must be put on the banks, right? See, anytime you do a transaction, the banks deduct money from you, right? They deduct the charges from you. And after deducting the charges, what is stopping them from handing over the money to the telcos? This is the question that the two regulators, there are two regulators involved here. The Nigerian Communication Commission is the regulator for the telcos, and the Central Bank of Nigeria is the regulator for the banks.
For the commercial
and I'm
banks.
surprised that the two regulators have not blocked the sledgehammer on the banks, right? Instead, we're talking about the telco switching off USSD so that Nigerians will suffer, right? It is the central bank that should read the Riot Act to every bank and say, if you don't pay the telcos the debt you owe them, we are withdrawing your banking license. This is what happens. And then the banks will be forced to pay over to the telcos, and then we're not talking about this switching off so that Nigerians will suffer. Nigerian leaders don't seem to care for the people. It is actions that will bring pains onto Nigeria that they always go for. Why are we going for that kind of solution, right? The other time we're hearing that we need to increase petrol price because it will make petrol expensive to avoid smuggling. Instead of fighting the smugglers, we are now increasing petrol price to impact negatively on Nigerians.
And from the reports that we are seeing, from evidence on ground, it has in no way reduced smuggling in the country.
It has not, exactly. So instead of the central bank reading the Riot Act to the banks to pay over the debt, it is Nigerians that will now have to suffer without the use of USSD, and it is very sad.
Now, it also appears that the persons or individuals across the country who use USSD, the number is quite enormous, way higher than even people who go through the channel of mobile bank apps and all of that. And even persons who use mobile bank apps still receive alerts on their phones, via SMS alerts and all of that. If this is gone entirely, what would, in your opinion, be the most viable solution to this issue, especially dragging in the two regulators that you've mentioned, Nigeria's Apex Bank, the CBN, and of course the NCC in the picture?
So you have said the right thing. For us to judge the quantum of the use of USSD is the debt that is being owed. 200 billion
naira
has accumulated when they are deducting 3 naira or 5 naira from one transaction. That is to tell you that the transactions are humongous. It's a huge quantum of transactions to generate that kind of debt.
That's
right?
Correct. That's correct.
And that money is not even being paid. It's not supposed to be paid by the banks. It is money they have taken from their customers, right? The banks have taken this money from their customers. So it's not even that the banks should share part of their profit with the telcos. No, they deducted. So if I do a transaction of 1,000, maybe it's 1,005 naira. That 5 naira, I am the one that paid it as a bank customer, and the bank collected it. And what is stopping them from handing over the money to the telcos that provided the service? And for me, the central bank governor should be called to question here. He is the one that is allowing the banks to do this. If the central bank governor reads the Riot Act to banks today I can assure you that within 1 week, this debt will all be paid. And we'll not be talking about this USSD thing again. The central bank governor needs to do better for Nigerians.
Well, quite viable solutions you have put out there. Now, also notes that the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Bosun Tijani, has revealed that telecom's tariff hike shouldn't be more than 60%. This is coming off the back of recent fears by Nigerians about a news of a possible hike in call and data tariffs, which Nigerians were expecting to be a little bit above 100% or so. Now the minister is saying that it must not be above 60%. Should Nigerians be excited about this, or should we also decry the fact that why is the tariff being hiked in the first place?
We can never be excited in the face of rising cost, because as Nigerians, we're already suffering too much. Almost everything is rising. As we know, petrol price has risen, electricity tariff has risen, interest rates are high.
Inflation is high as well.
Inflation is high, so we can never be excited at the possibility of additional costs coming from anywhere. Now, I actually plan to do a short article on this.
Okay.
Because there are two sides to this story.
Yeah.
Then, number one, the exchange rate has more or less collapsed. I mean, from 460 official rate in 2023 to 1,600 now. That to me is a big jump in exchange rate. And these telcos are importing equipment. Some of them have expatriate staff on their payroll. So you can now see that they need a lot more naira to get $1 to be able to do this. So that is impacting on them. I can imagine that. But on the other side, here in London, where I am now,
yeah,
we received a new television service, and this television service is not coming via a dish. These people are no longer using dish to get the signal. They are not using antennas. The television is coming via broadband, which is data. So in the entire house here, me, my wife, and my children, we're using data to watch TV.
Yeah.
And that is huge amount of data. Just imagine data that you are using to watch TV 24/7, right? And at very cheap rates, cheaper than the data that we were buying before. So it means that technology now exists where telecom services are far cheaper than what they were before. Are the Nigerian telecoms companies actually upgrading to this technology so that they can actually provide broadband to us, data, as cheap as these people are giving us to watch television with? Why are they not doing that? So for me, the two sides need to really sit down. But 60% is already too big. We're suffering too high. Should be something far less than that.
60% is already big. Some people that I have spoken to have at least breathed a sigh of relief over the fact that the tariff hike will no longer be 100%, but rather 60%, while others are decrying the fact that with the back-breaking situation in the country with the high cost of fuel, high cost of electricity and other things, the government shouldn't even be considering allowing these telcos to increase their price in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, they can have a point, but on the other side, a regulator like the NCC is empowered to look into the books of the telcos. Yeah, they can go into the telco, look at their books, look at their bank transaction, look at everything, so that they'll be able to judge what is the real cost of providing telecom services to Nigerians, right? And if they find out that the telcos are making humongous profits, then there will be no basis for tariff increase. They said they found out that the telcos are actually against the ropes, and they are at the verge of bankruptcy. Then you will not consider a tariff to be able to keep them running. So the regulator for me needs to do additional work. They can't just be taking data that is coming to them from the telcos. They are empowered to actually send inspectors into the telcos to go and look into the books and look into their operations and know what is the truth and what is not the truth, and then decide on what needs to happen.
Well, Mr. Eric, we might move a little bit away from, the telcos versus the banks situation and their 200 billion naira debt situation, which is also biting hard on the backs of Nigerians, and move to Edo State, where the Edo Election Tribunal is being held. And yesterday we saw a rather twist, a funny twist, a shocking one in the tribunal where gunshots erupted. A video emerged of an individual holding a gun, shooting sporadically into the air and demanding that their mandate must be restored. Now, is this political talk from the APC or the PDP? It's a question that remains on the table. This is as the People's Democratic Party is pointing fingers at the APC, while the All Progressives Congress is also pointing fingers at the PDP. What are we looking at exactly? Is this a mind game? Or what should Nigerians be expecting from the election tribunal?
So, democracy thrives on certain pillars. I try to make a basic example to try and connect with viewers to say, if you want to cook soup, like you want to prepare a bono soup, there are ingredients you must put in that soup, right? If you put the right ingredients, you will enjoy the ogbono soup. But if you carry stones and all sorts of things and put there and say this is the ingredient, you're not going to enjoy that ogbono soup. So democracy has ingredients that must be put in. It is when those ingredients are there that we enjoy democracy. That's when democracy dividends are delivered, right? And one of the ingredients of democracy is the sanctity of the electoral process. Of course, the other ones, of course, is the independence of the judiciary, independence of the legislative arm of government, generally the rule of law, So now coming to election, you see that elections in Nigeria are used as a means for state capture. Yeah, and this is wrong, because you see, politicians, not just in Nigeria, but everywhere in the world, will not respect the people and deliver good governance to them, except they need something from the people, right? And what politicians need from people elsewhere in the world are votes. They need the people's vote to either be elected or to remain in office. And that is why they are forced to also do something for the people. And in Nigeria, if the politicians know that they can just capture offices without needing the people, look, when they get into those offices, they are not going to deliver anything to the people because they don't need us. Okay? So, what is the events that are playing out in Edo State are very wrong and must stop, because it only shows that in about 2 years plus, when we are going to the polls again to elect leaders that will take office in 2027, that we have not learned any lessons. That elections will still be about the survival of the fittest, a jungle a fight for which camp or person is the strongest. Democracy will work better if institutions are stronger than individuals. But in Nigeria, you see that individuals are the ones that overpower the institutions. Like in this case, the institution of the electoral process is being overpowered in Edo State. And I call on Mr. President, because you see, we have been talking about state police, but for now, that is not on the table. So the person who is in charge of security in Nigeria as of today is Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And he cannot allow this kind of things to be happening. Look, he's in UAE as we speak, attracting investors. Does he think the investors are not watching the news in Nigeria and seeing what is happening in Edo State? Gunshots at an election tribunal. Exactly. And you think the investors want to go to a place like that? You see,
carry on.
Yeah, we live in a globalized village now. Investors know more about Nigeria than we even think they know. It's not when we make those visits that they know about us, right? They know what is happening here. They know that our judiciary can set judgment to the highest bidder. And they are thinking, oh, if I bring my money and then there is a dispute, can this judiciary give me justice? Do you understand? Can the security architecture protect me, my investment, and my people? Right? So all of these things don't give us the kind of image that we want to market. And Mr. President he should forget about party, right? He's now been elected. He's the president of Nigeria. He's for all Nigerians. So if it is the APC doing the wrong thing, you should call them to book. If it's the PDP, you should call them to book. If it's any other person, you should call them to book, regardless of whether they are his friends, they are his party men, or they supported him or not. He has risen above that. He has placed his hand on the Quran and taken an oath or to defend the constitution of Nigeria. And he needs to stand up and say no to this. I know if his body language changes, this thing will also change.
Now, Mr. Nick, one of the many arguments on the internet amongst individuals, which comes off a little bit comical but has a serious undertone, is the fact that almost every election in the country always has to go through the process of an election tribunal. Now, many people have argued that instead of going to the polls and wasting people's time, the contestants might as well just go to the tribunals or go to the courts, and then it will be decided there. What are your thoughts on such comments coming in from Nigerians? Are our eyes beginning to open more to what elections truly are in the country?
I can understand from where those comments are coming from. And to be honest, if you look at it deeply, they have a point, because the INEC as an electoral body is giving a huge budgetary allocation. And it appears as if that budgetary allocation is wasted, because if the election that they use the budget to conduct is not accepted, right, is not acceptable, and then it's the tribunal that judges, then maybe it is the tribunal that should conduct the election for Nigeria. But you see, the voice of the people has to be heard. And the voice of the people can only be heard at the ballot box. It cannot be heard in court, where a tribunal is judging. So these are the issues that we need to contend with in Nigeria. Ghana just had a presidential election, and the sitting vice president was defeated, and he conceded, to the former president who was the victor. That is Ghana. I don't want to talk about America, because once you talk about America, people will say, oh, their democracy is 200 years plus. But look at Ghana now. So even in Nigeria, if candidates see that the electoral process is transparent, right, and the result reflects the mood of the people, they will be more willing to concede. But the reason people go to the tribunal is that they see that this election has not been conducted in a free, fair, and credible manner. And therefore, they are aggrieved. So this whole thing has to come on INEC, the quality of election that INEC is conducting. But again, INEC has to be supported by the laws. For me, I was very surprised, for instance, to learn that electronic transmission of result was not mandated by the electoral law. Because in the run-up to the 2023 election, we talked about this transmission for so long, and I thought it was now a legal provision that every election must be transmitted electronically. And that didn't happen in the 2023 election. And these are the loopholes that the National Assembly needs to plug, right? There are the loopholes that they need to plug. And also, one other big loophole that needs to be plugged is what is happening in Edo State right now. Monday Okpebolo of the APC has already taken office. He's functioning as governor of Edo State. He has the budget at his disposal to fight this tribunal case. Why is that so? Do you understand? A man whose victory is still being contested at the court is already the executive governor of Edo State. And the only reason why this is possible is because INEC decides to conduct election 2 months to hand over, knowing fully well that the 2 months is not enough for the judicial process to be finished, right? So it is for the National Assembly to force the hands of INEC to say, you conduct elections 6 months to hand over. And within the 6 months, the judicial process will also be finished, so that the person who is taking office is the one that both the electorate and the court have said is the winner. Is that kind of something too difficult for us to do? Why are we now having off-cycle election? The only reason we have off-cycle election is because INEC is conducting elections too close to handover.
And then you have election petition tribunals that sort of distort the status quo of these electoral circles.
Thank you. So as we stand today, even Nigeria's presidential election is at a risk of off-cycle or becoming off-cycle. Because like in 2023, if the tribunals either handed over victory to Atiku Abubakar or to Peter Obi, Nigeria presidential election would have become off-cycle. because they would
because
have
a
taken office
petition would have been
from
made.
exactly. So imagine a country that is holding general elections and they are not electing the president because the presidential election is off cycle. That is the risk we are facing right now, and it can be solved simply by INEC conducting elections in good time to allow the judiciary to finish their term of office. What is difficult about that?
Now in closing, Mr. Nick, in just your final comments or thoughts on the Edo Election Petition Tribunal, do you think that perhaps the PDP is wasting its time by going to that tribunal, having seen that Monday Okwebelo is already the executive governor of the state, already has the budget at his disposal, and is already taking action as the rightfully elected governor of Edo State?
No, I wouldn't say that the PDP is wasting their time. It's very good that they are challenging the victory in court because number one is going to give us case law. Case law is that the courts have now been given the mandate to be able to adjudicate over an electoral case, and whatever they adjudicate will be used in future elections. So that is a plus, and also that courts have taken elections. In fact, why is Edo an off-cycle election? Because they took governorship and handed over to Oshomole. Yeah, who was that? Was it Osumbo? Yeah, they took it over from Osumbo and
handed it over to Oshomole.
Handed it over to Oshomole. So if Oshomole was successful, why wouldn't the PDP be successful? So it's a good thing that they are challenging. And look, in Nigeria, we must be challenging things. If we just let things slide, that is why we are not going to build a strong democracy. We must be challenging things. As citizens, we must challenge things. Everybody must challenge things. If we go to those countries that our boys and girls are jackpine to, citizens there are challenging things. They don't let things slide. So it is a good thing that they are pushing this, and they should push it all the way to the Supreme Court.
All right, Mr. Nick Agule, I must thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time having this conversation with you on Morning Express today.
Thank you very much, and good morning to our viewers.
All right.